call this regular board meeting for Wednesday, June 12th, 2024, to order at 4:01 p.m. Melissa, roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Here.
Director Hafley?
Here.
Director Jorgensen?
Director Jorgensen is running a few minutes late. He will join us sometime later during this meeting.
Director Malpacum?
Here.
Director Nelson?
Here.
Director Ott?
So we have 4 board members in person, and Director Carey and Director Hafley are joining us remotely, and Director Jorgensen will be joining us at some point in time during executive session. Please join me as we observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Director Bankus, can you please make the motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I move that the Board of Education adopt the agenda as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The agenda has been adopted as presented. We do have executive session for roughly 90 minutes. Director Ott, can you please make the motion to move into executive session?
I move that the Board of Education convenes into executive session to discuss negotiations per CRS
246402 4E, particular matter, superintendent's contract, and personnel per CRS 246402 4F, particular matter, superintendent's evaluation and employee compensation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. We'll enter into executive session and reconvene for the rest of the regular meeting at approximately 5:30 p.m. Thank you. Asking Melissa. Okay, good evening. Thanks for your patience. Thank you for your patience. Our executive session ran a little bit longer. It's good to see some of you up here. I know it's the middle of summer, or not the middle of summer, at least we are in the summer break. The summer break has officially started, but it's always good to see community engagement at our board meeting. So thank you all that are in the audience attending today. After executive session, there is no need to modify the agenda. So moving to the next item on the agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And may I please have Mr. John McCarran, who's going to be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. This is going to be his last official board meeting that he's attending in this capacity.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. Superintendent's report is next. Superintendent Gall, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Malpacum, and the board, and to the community as the slides come up. We're much faster into it tonight because the kids are gone, and so we don't have as many student and school and/or program spotlights. But we did want to start just kind of wrapping up the year a little bit. I just wanted to thank everyone for a great year. I tried to get every work group, family, and every phase of what we do in District 11 on the slide. And so I certainly will always want to thank our students first and foremost. We are here for students. We are programmed for students. We will stop at no end until our students get what they need. Our families as an extension of our students. This is a district where parent partnership means something that's real. Our teachers, where our mantra is the #1 way to student achievement is access to high quality instruction. That happens every day through our dedicated professionals in the classroom. We appreciate them. To the ESPs that I'm skipping executive cabinet, I think maybe we went in a different order. To our ESPs that ensure that our buildings and all our programs are ready to go, and especially for our ESPs that are partners with our teachers as paraprofessionals in the classroom. To our building administrators for leading really with fidelity and intent and understanding how to ask for resources that we can continue to drive more and more of them towards the classroom to ensure our students can be successful. Now to the executive cabinet, many of whom are lined up on the walls here. Nothing happens without a good idea actually getting to implementation and then actually coming back as a better idea through the professionals that we have around the room. A really strong shout out for our family, school, and community partners. Our Board of Education is first and foremost volunteers, but they certainly come with that with some level of authority within the system. We have so many parents that volunteer, one at the committee level, but then two just at the individual school level. Every classroom is better for having a parent in it, and then of course every office and/or function of the district is better when we can have a parent or a community member in it. So thank you to all of them for the work that they do, and I think we kind of captured that in the slides there, did the best that we could to get that all on one slide. I want to thank, we're going to do just, last week at the retreat, we had a couple of conversations of where we think we want to go as a district. So we have a couple of teaser slides for the community to see where District 11 wants to get to beginning next year. First of all, that thanks really goes for the work that we've been able to bring to bear. You've seen these slides before, but I want you to think about them as the successes on the left and the challenges on the right. So the successes on the left, I won't spend too much time, but we have halved the number of schools on the watch list in 1 year. We expect to half that again as the report comes out this August. And we hope that in August of 2025, we will have 0 schools on the state watch list. Again, that's tremendous to have gone from 15 to 0 in just 2 academic years. We are increasing on achievement as well. That would be the bottom slide. Our numbers are in, and roughly 10% in math and ELA. Growth is unheard of. And I want to thank all our educators and professionals, and particularly the students, for really diving in on best first instruction and understanding what that means. But just as I talk about the successes at the school level and the individual student level, unfortunately the way the system is built is I can get all our schools to performance level, which is a goal that we have, which means that we will still have hundreds of students not achieving and falling through the cracks. So if I shift over to the data story on the right, we're still having great challenges in attendance. We're having great challenges in our 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year graduation rate. We still continue to drop out an entire school's worth of kids every year. And if I take that and look at the engagement data that we're getting from multiple data points, it says our students are just not engaged in the traditional educational programming that we've offered them. And so that's a lot of what we'll be working on, is how do we create a more engaging opportunity for students to close those achievement gaps and to be able to deliver on this idea that it is the public education that is the pathway to the American dream. First and foremost, the team is centered on this summer on delivering on the board's new policies on the sanctity of the classroom environment, getting our kids in schools, having them paying attention to what's happening in schools, and making sure that when they don't, that we have consistent ways at which we are rectifying the challenges that our students bring. We will continue to allow our principals to have the authority to make the most difficult decisions, but what we promise our families is late at one school is late at another school. And the same thing, if your student is sent out of class, that you will get notified if your student is sent out of class. You've heard the board talk about cell phones. It's not District 11. It's America. Parents are taking back classrooms. Teachers are taking back classrooms. Every one of our work groups has asked us to make sure that we keep the kids not distracted by their cell phone. Are you doing good over there, Melissa? I see some action.
Maybe.
Okay, I'm going to keep going?
Yes.
Okay, just to refresh people, we have really an arc of change in District 11. These things don't happen in sequence, they happen at the same time, but we are constantly examining our systems and structures, making sure we invest in our adults, making sure that we have the right professional development to eventually deliver on the call for what students need. And so what you'll see this next year is a real focus and a real shift in taking the changes that we've made in our systems and structures and moving our professional development from just being adult-faced to ensure that it's delivering on students. So I'm going to go over 3 critical actions that we'll be taking on next year, and I want the community to see them up front. Student agency, activating learners through the strength of our instructional network. I'll go over all these in about 2 slides each here in a second. Developing a peak experience for every one of our high school students such that every kid has a pathway to understand what happens after they graduate. The diploma is the starting point, not the goal. And then bringing our teacher salary to a place that no other district in El Paso County or in the state of Colorado has been able to achieve. Last year we moved from $41,000 to $50,000 at starting salary. We want to be able to offer $100,000 as a mid-career salary goal for our teachers. This is a slide we use internally that I'm going to talk a little bit about student agency. The whole goal has been to activate the entirety of the district, which is represented on the stages on the left, to ensure that we support and deliver for our children. Any parents listening know that as soon as your student is engaged in a learning environment or an opportunity, nothing you can do can slow them down. Actually, the entire conversation changes, and we start having to facilitate student learning instead of directing student learning. So the goal is to find the orbit for each child in the system on what is it that is important to them, and how is it that we can align the opportunities and resources to ensure that they're delivered into the community as part of our community and as lifelong learners. I'm going to go through these 2 slides. I'll flip back and forth a little bit. This is the way we've been trying to restructure the adults in the system and how we've changed our organizational structure over the last 2 years and will continue to morph. Most systems live in the upper left, which is a command structure. The superintendent says, and then the chiefs hear, and then the executive directors and principals go do. What we've gotten to in this last year is a command of teams. We've done that primarily by using our design thinking lab and by using some task force around specific subject matters, which is how do we take cross-functional and subject matter expertise to solve problems that we've not been able to solve before, with the goal to finally getting to a team of teams where the direction is actually coming from the data instead of coming from the ideas of a limited number of adults in the system. I would say right now we're proudly in the command of teams in the upper right, but on our way to team of teams. What we're getting ready to embark on is, we've all heard the adult language that says, do as I say, not as I do. We're going to flip that. We're going to say, do as I do, not just as I say. And we're going to flip the student experience to be the same. So you should see very similar models here, that on the far left, you have a very top-down way that we in public education can normally see instruction happening. Teacher-directed, lecture-driven, students sit down, here's your worksheets, compliance modeled. More teacher-directed is where I would say we are as a district right now, is in that second one, which is teachers are working in small groups to facilitate the differentiated needs of students. That's great, but what's even better is when we can get students to own their own learning. Moving students over to that green column on the right, where the teacher is now facilitating the independent critical thinkers and high agency skills of students. Again, as parents and as educators, you all have those examples. Every student is capable of being on that far right. We have to create the structures to do it. I'm just going to go back a slide again to show that most systems start in the upper left and then have a completely different experience of what they expect for students. We're going to marry what we expect from adults by getting to a team of teams, by doing the same thing for students. We're going to do this by using the power of what already exists in the district. We're not hiring 18 new coaches. The money and the FTEs are not available. And I'm just using 18 as a fictitious number. We have 18 or more incredible examples of wonderful things happening in our schools. So instead of making that central office's goal is going to be, how do we navigate and get the teachers and educators who need supports access to those model classrooms to then get their own individual learning. No two classrooms are the same. We have zero desire to replicate and reproduce this idea of an extremely tight educational environment. But I know every time that you take an educator into a space where they can see student agency or other displays of strong learning happening, they will internalize that and then take that back to their classroom. So more learning walks, more model classrooms. We will create an entire rubric system for teachers to know, and we will start next year on new to teaching teachers and those who have had challenges with their state mandated RANDA. So anybody rated at the partially effective level. How do we put our resources against the problem? Second idea, I'm going to shift here quickly to this idea of how does that student agency play out for students, the idea of a peak experience and what is your pathway. I'll read them real quickly. 1 in 6 18 to 24-year-olds is not engaged in school or employment. That is a terrible statistic. If you live in Colorado Springs, you see it. You know how many of the kids that you saw graduate this year that have now defined a gap year. When I grew up, a gap year meant you deferred your college acceptance for a year to go work for a nonprofit. Now a gap year means I have no idea what I'm doing the week after graduation. Every student has to have a plan, and we have to ensure that we put the power of the district behind it. The second quote there, only 16.5 of ninth graders are expected to complete a college degree or certificate within 10 years. I hope that we have every kid in America right here in Colorado Springs that's going to be a million dollar person as a social media influencer. But statistics say that we don't. And so what we have to do is we have to prepare our children to be a part of our local, our state, and our global economy. This is right out of the student's mouth. You can see the two yellow lines right there, graded B- and C+, prepared for your future and or teaching you about potential careers. This is the critical time where pathways becomes the language. It's not whether I'm going to college or I took a CTE class. It's how is it that I'm using experiential learning to inform what it is I want to do in college or career. So our expectation is to be able to expose our kids in elementary school, get them to explore in middle school, and get real life experiences in high school. The goal will be that 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders will get a District 11 item on their graduation requirement that says you have had a peak experience in each one of those years. If you're wondering what a peak experience it is, it's a competency-based demonstration of knowledge. We're going to do that analysis. Yeah, the majorette for the marching band is probably going to be able to qualify for that. But I'm not sure if the 5th kid in the percussion line will get that same qualification. How is it that kids are bringing, I'm going to go forward here, our ICAP to life through the graduate profile? You can see that with the state has ICAP, we have a graduate profile, but what we're not doing is we're not scheduling against that. We're scheduling against the requirements to get to graduation. Instead of how do we schedule against what a student's interests are, that means that we can change those statistics in the beginning, that every kid has a plan. You'll see that happen in the Future Center. We finished our pilot year at Doherty High School. We're proud to be partnered with Peak Education, who's going to bring in $300,000 with a grant to help us build out the FTE and the programming, such that next August when we open, all 5 high school campuses in District 11 will have a Future Center where students can learn to understand what the opportunities are, not just how to get to graduation. Finally, on teacher salary, we took a stab at this last year on this idea of a proposed alternative pay scale. The problem is we tried to convince everybody in the system that they needed something different. So instead of trying to change it for everybody, what we're going to do is we're going to offer a mid-year opportunity for teachers to compete for $100,000 per school opportunities. We're not quite sure exactly what that's going to entail, but if you think of an exemplar or a master teacher, it's going to be based upon an interview process for folks to be able to compete and understand how is it that by the way they contribute to their school environment, can they be rewarded at a place where $100,000 is the salary that certainly America treats as that living wage right now, and then how do we use that to actually restructure the entirety of pay over time, that everybody who wants to take on more will be rewarded fiscally in a way that delivers for students. That's my vision going forward. I want to close by just making first a professional thanks for what John McCarron's been able to do, not just in District 11, but what John has done over an entire career. John and I have had a couple of overlaps and near misses in different cities, and we have a lot of shared friends over time, that when I came here and I heard that John McCarron was on the staff, I knew that we were going to have a rock-solid technology and beyond. John has done things that scope way outside of technology. John has built systems and structures that are bleeding into places that have nothing to do with technology, because he showed people that if you put a plan together, you can deliver on the goal. And that's the basic promise that we try to give to our parents and to our students, is that with the money that you give to us through your taxes, we can deliver on a goal on behalf of your students. So on behalf of all our retirees, but John and the one that works closest with me on my executive cabinet, a heartfelt thanks for an entire career, and we wish you fair winds and following seas, is what my Navy friends would like to say, particularly on your drive back east. Join us Friday, June 21st at, Melissa's got the details, there we go. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Superintendent Gall, for sharing that information. Just for the community awareness too, some of what Superintendent Gall presented just now was discussed and presented at the board retreat last week, so the board got an opportunity to preview what the superintendent's big, bold, audacious goals are for next year, and we were able to provide feedback during that retreat. Board, any thoughts or comments on what Superintendent Gall presented? Okay, seeing none, moving on, thank you. Moving on to the, and thank you, John, for your years of service here in District 11. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is public comments. We do have public comments. Okay. Okay, going over the board protocol for public comments, just as a reminder, and I'll be quick, the board welcomes and is very interested in listening to community feedback. Please approach the dais when your name is called. You have 3 minutes to deliver your remarks. Please monitor the clock that is on display and complete your comments in that allotted time. Board meetings are primarily business meetings for the orderly and efficient conduct of the business of the district. Keeping that in mind, the clear expectation is that your feedback is provided in a civil, professional, and courteous manner without resorting to disparaging or defamatory remarks. In order to adhere to board policy and accomplish the work already on the agenda, the board will not respond to your comments, but rest assured that your comments will be taken into consideration as we discuss pertinent agenda items. And for the same reason, to maintain the flow of the meeting and not have prolonged interruptions, please refrain from clapping. If you want to show support or solidarity to a speaker, please stand as the speaker is talking or use a silent applause. Finally, the statements made by the public do not reflect the views of the board or the district. With that, the first public comment is from Mr. Rex Garrison.
Thank you, board, and thank you for having a retreat last week because I was scheduled to work. I'm Rex Garrison, the manager of Media Production Services, now Engagement Production. And I'm the leader of the best video production team possibly in all of K-12 education. We had a very successful graduation run this year, and before I retire after 23 years, I'm going to give you my assessment of the video production capabilities in District 11 now. The studio was built in 1968, and we've been on cable since the early 70s. We have over 50 years of experience in service with District 11. January 2002, we got Channel 16 24/7. It was our own channel, and that was Adelphia back then. On March 31st, 2004, we started the first live broadcast of this board regular meetings, and we've been doing it ever since. The first summer that I was here, I engineered and equipped the video production truck. Hundreds of students received hands-on experience broadcasting district events for probably about 18 years. Early on, I was asked by a parent, why don't we broadcast every game? It was a simple math problem back then. 5 high schools, the number of teams equals how many trucks are we gonna need? Right now, I am happy to say that we put in AI systems in the gyms in the stadium, and we stream every game to YouTube. We thank you for giving us the fund balance last year, because we did install 4K broadcast systems in all 5 of our high school auditoriums and the studio. We have 26 cameras, all the audio boards and intercoms on the network now. That gives us the capability to include each of the auditoriums in this live broadcast with student crews at the schools and our studio. At Coronado, we piloted a program to pay high school students to do broadcasting of school events. And that pilot program is going to be expanded next year to all of the high schools. That's a big one. At Swigert, we're getting another system. They're putting one in their auditorium. So I would say we're in excellent shape. I've had 6 superintendents, and it seems like 6 logos, but it's really only been 4 that I've been here. And I applaud the way Superintendent Gall talks about the Colorado Springs School District 11 and the passion and desire that he has to make the district the highest performing and best choice in the region. We do have a brand. That brand has guidelines, and in those guidelines, our primary color is red. It was selected carefully and purposefully in a process that included students and even our board president. I believe that changing the color to blue has watered that brand down. I don't know if there's a record number of staff leaving the district, and I'm not going to say that's a bad thing because I was new and young at one time too. And finally, students. These systems are there for you. Ask about them, learn how to use them, get involved and take over that narrative. My staff are well prepared to continue on, and I'm going to miss them all. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison. Thank you for your years of service here. Moving on to the next public comment, Vicki McLaughlin. Ms. Vicki McLaughlin.
Hi. So I am here to talk to you guys about my love-hate relationship with District 11. I love the fact that Tesla now has students currently going to it. I love the fact that my student Irvin just left North, which was the school that my grandmother went to. But I hate the fact that I now have to leave D11 to go to D20 because there's no pathway for my son's goals in D11. And you might ask, what are those goals? Well, my son wants to be a professional athlete, and I know a lot of you are looking at me like I'm crazy, but he is doing his part. He, at North, was in NJHS. He had a 3.8 grade point average. He was in the web leading. He did cross country and track, all while playing AAA hockey out of Denver. And with that said, I literally just left CC, where he is the only child in Colorado Springs that is playing at the U.S. Olympic regional camp right now with 200 other athletes best athletes from around the country in hockey. And you might say, well, what is this? It is the fact that D11 punishes my kid routinely because of his attendance. He is leaving to play hockey out of state twice, if not 3 times a month. He probably missed 40 days of school last year and continued to keep a 3-point grade point average, continued to do all of these extra wonderful things. And he wants to be a D1 athlete. He wants to be Olympian. He wants to be in the NHL. And he has to play AAA hockey. And it's not just my kid. They had all the kids just at this regional camp this morning stand up and ask them how many school days that they missed, and on average it was over 40. And so all of these parents are looking for an avenue for their children, and we do not offer that. And the hate comes in when I hear, well, what about Achieve Online? Achieve is not gonna get you to go to CC. It's not gonna get you to go to DU. It's not gonna get you to go to any of these high performance colleges. We know this. And we are Olympic City, USA, guys. Get on board with the program, right? If we're gonna talk the talk, we need to walk the walk, which means we need to provide opportunities for children who want to be athletes. If I were to go to Doherty and my kid were to go and say, I want to be an astrophysicist, there would be pathways for him. You would be excited, even though there's less than 100 astrophysicists out there. those jobs are non-existent, where there's thousands of jobs in professional athletics right now. So my time is almost up. So as a matter of fact, I got to go back to the rink and watch more hockey this weekend. But that is, that's my beef.
Thank you.
Sorry. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for your feedback and sharing your thoughts. The board appreciates your feedback, and we'll certainly take that into consideration as we proceed further. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, it's board member reports. Board, any of you? Oh, legislative report is in front of it. Okay, so hang on a minute. I was skipping agenda. We do have legislative update under special reports. So we have Ms. Amy Atwood. Amy Atwood, can you please come and join us? And as the board is aware, Ms. Atwood has been our legislative liaison, our lobbyist with the Colorado State Legislature. And as we had a very packed and busy session over the last 4 or 5 months, Ms. Atwood regularly attended our board meetings, sometimes most of the time virtually, providing us an update. She is going to give us an end-of-the-year report and also highlight some of the things that are happening now that we should keep an eye on going into the fall. Ms. Atwood, it's good to have you.
Thank you. Amy Atwood, Atwood Public Affairs. It's good to be with you this evening. When I was here in May, we debriefed the 2024 legislative session. As of last week, all the bills that had passed were either signed or vetoed by the governor. If you remember, I said the legislative session is the bookend for the year. The new legislative year really begins now. All the groundwork for legislation is laid between now and January. The next 7 months promise to be filled with significant events in education, including ballot measures, legislative elections, and the activities of multiple task forces. First, let's talk about the legislative activities that will occur throughout the interim, so throughout these next 7 months. There are a number of task forces, but there are 2 that I specifically want to highlight for you. The first is the At-Risk Measure for School Finance Working Group. This was born out of House Bill 22-1202. So they've been meeting now summer of 22, summer of 23, and now summer of 24. This is a group looking at redefining what it means for a student to be considered at risk. This group has struggled to come up with a solid recommendation and asked the legislature for another year for this interim to continue to keep working. And it's not that they can't come to consensus, it's more to do with the administrative side for districts and for CDE. How to capture and report the correct information is really what the sticking point is, and the legislature agreed that they needed another year to work on that. We do expect the recommendation to come before the legislature in the 25 session, with implementation in the 25-26 school year. So that is a really important task force. The second one is the Accountability, Accreditation, Student Performance, and Resource Inequity Task Force. That is a lot of words. It was passed last year. It was House Bill 23-1241, so they've been meeting for a year already. This group has been meeting for a year. Their recommendations, though, are not due until the end of this year. So they're due in December before the legislature starts. And they have been tasked with looking at Colorado's entire accountability and performance system in education. So the entire thing. We do expect sweeping recommendations, and there will not be total consensus. Just like with the School Finance Task Force, there wasn't total consensus, there was a minority report. We do expect that from this task force, and there certainly is a push-pull politically between what stakeholders are called reformers and stakeholders that are called establishment. And so there are a lot of politics that are going into this as well. The current system was first brought forward by the reformers, so you could imagine that they want to protect what is already in place, but the legislature really does believe that the whole system needs to be looked at and reevaluated. It's time for that. We may see a big omnibus bill or smaller bills that take pieces of it. I think we'll see smaller bills, but I think we will also see competing bills. So that also adds a dynamic to it. And have you engaged, has the district or any of you engaged with either one of those task forces?
Not that I'm,
No.
Not that I'm aware of. Superintendent Gall? Okay.
Okay.
no.
So the accountability task force, out of all of them, is one where D11 needs to engage. The influence you can have, just like with school finance, can and should have a significant impact on this legislation, on the legislation that we will see. Your demographics alone will put you at the table for negotiations if you choose to engage, and it's not too late to engage. This is where I can help you strategize with what is the right time, who are the right people to engage with, who are the influencers. These task force meetings are all public, but much of the work is done behind the scenes. It's not in secret. It's just through individual conversations with influencers and task force members. All of the task forces, including this one, meet at least 4 to 6 times. And the accountability task force has subgroups that are meeting as well. So there are a lot of opportunities to engage and get plugged in. And having someone who tracks all of that, goes to all of those meetings and can report back to you, this is the time to engage, this is the time for public comment. Let's, I specifically need you to call this person. I need you to call this person and send the message for the district. That is really, really important, and I think that you have that opportunity to do it. There are 4 more task forces that I just want to mention. The Secondary, Post-Secondary, and Work-Based Learning Integration Task Force. This goes directly with what Superintendent Gall was talking about with your pathways and how secondary all the way through higher education and the other career pathways, how do we integrate that? So that task force has been meeting since 2022. They've come forward the last 2 years with bills to help the communication throughout that entire continuum. Disproportionate Discipline Task Force, that one actually met today. And this one came out of legislation in 2023. Their charge really is to look at suspensions and expulsions and disproportionate discipline within different demographics. If you remember this session, we had a bill on student seclusion that Representative English was the sponsor of with Assistant Majority Leader Bacon. They chose to pull their bill and not have it go forward with a vote, but they committed to bringing that bill forward again, and it was a prohibition on any student seclusion. And it was brought up today during this task force. And as Representative English is down here in this region, this is a perfect opportunity to get engaged with her, as well as with Assistant Majority Leader Bacon, she sits on the Education Committee, to work with them on this legislation as we know that it's going to come. And we can help the representatives and senators understand, what does it mean? What do we do here in D11? And so there's another opportunity where you can get engaged. School Transportation Task Force, that's been meeting for 2 years. It's all things transportation. And then lastly, the State Mill Levy Task Force. This one was created out of the New School Finance Act that was passed this year. And it has to do with, there is a matching fund that was set up for the state to match local mill levy override dollars to help districts that are really struggling to get a mill levy override passed, or that their assessed values are so low it's not worth them to even put something on the ballot. and the distribution of that money, that match money. And that's what this task force, this mill levy task force is charged with, is how should that money be allocated throughout the system to those that are choosing and who want to use it. I monitor all the task forces. They're really important because legislation is born out of these task forces. There are also interim committees. If you remember, we had the School Finance Interim Committee for years. We don't have that any longer. But we do have the Joint Budget Committee, and they meet year-round. In the summer and in the fall, they particularly have revenue forecasts, quarterly revenue forecasts, and they have theirs next week. So it's usually the 20th of the month, and they're fascinating if you're into economics. We get 2 forecasts, one from the governor's office, one from JBC staff, and it goes from international, national, and local. And we see what is happening around the world economically, and then bringing it down, how does that impact Colorado? That is also where we learn how much money is there for the budget for next year. So this forecast that we see in June will help us round out this 23-24 budget. We will know what we have in surplus, what the state has in surplus. We'll also get a preview as to what do they think we'll see for next year. And we always hear the number of, this is, if you just hold your current obligations, so every bill that has been passed that needs funding, including K-12, any other program, Medicaid, everything else, how much is that? And then the forecast, how much is over that? How much can we expect that will come in above that? Or how much do we expect that will come in below that? And so with the budget stabilization factor being brought down this year to 0, and the commitment they will keep it at 0, if we don't have excess revenues that are coming in, the BS factor is back on the table. And it is really incumbent upon us to keep the pressure on that education is not the place where the state balances the budget. It is not where our legislators can look. There are other places to look. So being engaged with the JBC and knowing what's going on ahead of when they get in. Most legislators don't know what's going on with the budget until they get in January, and then they really don't know until they see the budget in March. So are there any questions on interim committees and task forces, what that next 6 months looks like?
Yeah. Can you? Director Jurgensen.
So given what you just shared, what do you believe we should consider doing as far as spreading membership, or what would that look like to be engaged, as a broader question?
Well, that is a very good question. Engaging someone who will be there for you and carrying your message and being on top of it. You have the associations that are there. CASE will be there, CASB will be there, but they're not carrying D11 message. And they're not getting you in the rooms for negotiations. And sometimes we see that the associations can negotiate from a different point of view than what is right for this district. And keeping track of all the balls that are in the air, particularly with those subcommittees when it comes to the accountability. You are a gold standard district. Just looking at what you've done in 2 years, you have implemented and can show and prove this can be done. And so to have that voice, and have that voice from down here in this region, because this region can be very much stereotyped, and you're different. Your demographics are different, your leadership is different, and that, back to your question, it is having somebody who can carry that message and then bring in at the right times, like we did with Superintendent Gall, like we did with Dr. Comfort on school finance. It's having those kind of connections. Okay.
The board is, the administration is prepared to step in to some of these spaces. Brandon and I have obviously spent a lot of time on this year's FSA, but on the accountability piece, I think it's a great place to grow some leadership opportunities for both the CAO, Tamara Acevedo, and for our data team at Dr. Colicky. And so we'd love to be able to engage with Amy afterwards and find the right way into that space. There are some strong leaders in the county that are influencing some of that in a way that I would say is a direction not consistent with the way the board wants to go. And so now that I think too, and I appreciate the compliment, but that we've reestablished that good ideas can be generated in the Colorado Springs School District 11, that we should have a seat at that table.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. So I just want to give this feedback to the board too, so you have an understanding of what this potential partnership could be going forth. Thank you for the shout out for this being a gold standard district, and that's our hope and aspirations. I'm glad that that is resonating even at the state level. In prior years, our relationship with the legislative lobbyist has been that he or she has been engaged with us at the start of the legislative session. So we bring them in late December or early December sometimes, but most often in January after the session starts, January to May, and they come periodically to provide updates to the board. What Ms. Atwood is suggesting is that a lot of the work happens now in between those, the legislative session, and more of a partnership that she can provide a year-long partnership where she can talk about connecting us to the influences on the task force so we can have a voice. Would that categorize?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we as a board have to be open to that type of relationship, having a year-long lobbyist as opposed to having a lobbyist only for the 5 or 6 months.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So let's move on to the election. I am not sure if you saw the election report I shared with you last night. No worries if you didn't comb through it. But with the primary just around the corner, El Paso's a flurry of activity, particularly on the Republican side. Representative Mary Bradfield has a primary, so does Senator Larry Liston. And Senator Bob Gardner's seat, he's term limited, so there is a primary in that Senate District 12. With regards to the general election, here in the Pikes Peak region, there are 3 House seats and 2 Senate seats that are considered in play. That means that they're not safe seats for either party. There are more in-play seats in the Pikes Peak region than any other region in the state. And that really shows the demographic shifts down here in the Pikes Peak region to have 5 in one area. We discussed hosting a legislative breakfast or a social event when I was here in May. I think that is a great idea. We can do it either before the election or right after the election. If we do it before the election, though, we get to invite the candidates, all the candidates. And we get to, start building relationships with them if we don't already have them, but we can start talking to them about our issues so that when they're out on the campaign trail and they're knocking on doors, they're thinking about how can they be there to help support us. And then we can also, through our relationships with them, how can we support them? And so doing it before the election really starts laying that groundwork. And if one of them is thinking about running a bill in education, we certainly want to know ahead of time. And we can talk to them about the budget and how important it is that they hold firm on the budget stabilization factor. And it also shows that the district is nonpartisan, that we respect the elected officials and respect that they're candidates as well. And those candidates often, whether they win or lose, are influencers in the area. And to have those relationships and have them on our team too, it just goes so far. So whether you choose to do it before or after the election, I think it is a great, great idea. Throughout the summer and fall, I attend fundraisers, like we all do. But more importantly, I knock on doors with candidates on both sides. This is another way to reinforce your issues. I take your issues with me when I go and knock on doors with them. Usually their guard is down. We all know what it's like to knock on doors. It's hot. Some people are mean. Some people just flat out, door after door, don't answer their doors. And it's a great way to build a relationship. It means more than any check that I could give them. And it shows that I support them and the hard work that it takes to get elected. And we build a relationship. So when it comes time for them, if they have a question about education, they know they can come to Amy. And I'm gonna give them solid, truthful information. And it's not just down here. I do it all across the state. I take trips across the state and meet with candidates and knock doors with them. I find that is the best way to get to know them, and then they get to know me as well. Okay, lastly, there are a number of ballot measures on assessed values and property taxes. If you remember, the legislature passed that property tax bill in the last 3 days. And it was in hopes that the ballot measures, the proponents for the ballot measures would pull their ballot measures and not go forward. And that didn't happen. The proponents are continuing forward with their measures. There is one that is out right now, currently getting signatures. There are 3 more that are waiting for approval to get their signatures, or to go out and get signatures from the Secretary of State. The bill that was passed only goes into effect if a ballot measure doesn't pass. And the law that was passed, it had 2 levels. It had the assessed value for education and then the assessed value for everybody else. These ballot measures don't have that. One of them has, the one that's out for signature right now, says that the state has to backfill. Local governments, everybody. That's millions and millions and millions of dollars. Again, that goes back to the budget. So that one's out right now. The other 3 don't have that. It just flat out brings the tax rate down, and there's no backfill for K-12 education. I bring this up because not only could it impact our budget, but it also means that we may have a special session. We'll get through the summer, and there will be polling over the summer. And if there's a compromise to be made with the ballot measure proponents, then I think we will see a special session in August, probably August, September. And I, of course, will be there for that. Let's see. Okay, that lays out really how the next 6 months look. All the work for next session starts now. The bills are being drafted. I already know legislators that have 3 of their 5 titles already set. So it's better to be on the forefront and helping them draft legislation than being reactive once we see that it's come out, or we're on the back end and we're getting like the final draft in January. So that's it. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, thank you. As far as feedback goes, you talked about the breakfast or the lunch with the legislators. I like the idea of doing it even before the elections, that personally, because after the elections we run into the holiday season, and then we have a limited amount of time to engage with the people that get elected, and then we go into the legislative session. So if there is an opportunity to do it in October, maybe that would be that way we get to meet the candidates too. The task force that you talked about, all these various task force, how do you get appointed to these task force, and is there a possibility that somebody from District 11, whether that is a board member or somebody from Superintendent Gall's team, can be appointed to that task force?
So the task forces that I detailed now have already been appointed, except for the mill levy override task force. And I actually was texting back and forth with the speaker today to find out what positions are still open, specifically to see if we can have someone from D11 fill one of those positions. And there is an urban position that is open. And so I'm pushing her on that one to see. I know she has other nominations, but I think it's worth putting your name in.
Great. But usually is that somebody from administration level, or is it a board member that gets appointed to the task?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends on, specifically it will say an urban superintendent or an urban board member or an urban teacher.
Okay.
Or CFO, those kinds of things. They're usually pretty prescriptive.
Yeah.
So those are done, but task forces have become so popular because it's the subject matter experts, where interim committees are legislators that are not subject matter experts. So we will continue to see task forces through legislation year after year, and there are opportunities to engage. And even if you're not appointed, there are subcommittees, and being engaged on those subcommittees, that's often where a lot of the work happens, is in the subcommittees.
Okay. As these new task forces and subcommittees get formed, to keep the superintendent informed, keep me informed too, and if there is a possibility that one of us can get appointed on the task force, we would have more influence being on the task force itself as opposed to just getting connected from the outside. Questions or comments from board members? Any other questions or comments? Director Jorgensen.
Just a comment that I see value in having a year-long relationship with these, just the ability to be able to get into these spaces, to have our voice shared and all that. So I look forward to seeing what that looks like.
Okay, great. Yes, so I just get the pulse of the board. Director Nelson. Go ahead.
You mentioned a couple of possible places to get involved, and I did not write them down as you were saying them. So could you send us just a really short email of here are some possibilities and maybe just recommendations on what makes sense of board versus staff versus, or maybe we just need to have future conversations together to figure that out. But I would be curious for you to name again the task forces or the committees.
Do you want me to say them now?
Just send an email. If
Okay,
that's not
I'll
too
just
much
do
trouble.
it on email. Yes,
Okay,
perfect.
It doesn't have to be long.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so if the board is comfortable with it, so that's what I'm asking. If the board is comfortable, just to remind me, maybe I need to look at Ms. Odom for this thing. The current contract with Ms. Atwood is just for 1 year, if I remember that right, and that effectively ends at this point in time. Okay, so is the board open to having a year-long relationship, partnership with Ms. Atwood going forth? If that is the case, okay. So that is the case, could you explore a future contract with Ms. Atwood and bring that to the board if it has to come in front of the board in August? Okay, thank you. That's the will and the direction of the board at this time. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Atwood. Thank you for all the reports that you provided, and keep engaged with us even though it's summer, and I hope you get a break too. Looks like you're going to be going knocking on doors, so.
Yes.
We do have legislative agenda, kind of the priority for District 11. We can certainly give you several of those handouts if that is something that you are willing to handle.
Absolutely.
Great.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Now moving on to board member reports. Board members? Director Hart.
Thank you. I need to go before Director Nelson because we share our report, sort of. First, though, I'm going to mention I hope everyone's having a good summer, and especially our staff who get the summer off, but thanks to those who are still working for us, especially tonight and doing the year-round thing. I also wanted to mention the summer food program is going on for students or just children ages 1 to 18, and that information is out on our website. Visit d11.org. When I was on the website, it was the first thing, sharing that information, and you can track that down where you can get those free meals. Let's see. Oh, the other thing, we have our school assignments, and this year, because we were doing the breakfast, and I didn't miss that many, Superintendent Gallows mentioned that, I managed to set foot in every school. It's a first for me, so yay! You don't have to. Yeah, I've been on the board for 6 years, and that really is what made it possible, I would say, for, it's because we all know it's difficult to get in schools sometimes, although Director Jorgensen mentioned that he visited like 5 in one day between graduations. So congratulations on that, because that's pushing it. But anyway, it's pretty exciting to get around to all the schools. Not as much time, though, too. If you're trying to get to all of them, you don't get quite as much time as you'd like in all of them. But the other thing, as we discussed at our retreat last week, Director Nelson and I we're going to attend, and we did, a workshop yesterday to begin exploring with others, staff, and many of our community volunteers, the role of committees, and some of our takeaways or the goals of the day that were accomplished. We established community agreements that amongst ourselves that committees could use as their norms going forward, and we can send those to you. We reviewed which committees were represented in the room, which unfortunately wasn't all of them, but people have jobs and things to do with their lives, so couldn't all be there. And we reviewed their charges briefly. We also discussed the elements of effective committees, and we have 2 slides on that. It was quite a list. And practice solving dilemmas as a group and how to work together to explore solutions that might be problems for committees or just groups in general. But really what it came down to, Director Nelson and I were speaking today, there's more work to do, and that will come in August. So stay tuned. So, thank you.
Any other board member reports? Director Nelson.
Director Ott pretty much covered what I would have said about yesterday. I'll just say again that we have some work ahead of us as a board to help clarify the roles and responsibilities and the charges of our committees. I think that will just immensely make them more efficient and productive, and be able to increase communication between the board and the committees. And so just looking forward to where we can go and continue to improve our processes for the students. And so lots of work ahead of us as a team, as a board, to really sit down and figure out what we're wanting from our committees, because their time is so valuable and the work they do is so helpful, and so we just want to make sure we're utilizing their time and energy as best we can. And I'll also add that the process yesterday walked us through an example protocol of how to facilitate conversations or meetings, and that was also just really interesting exercise to see that you can move through a topic or a dilemma fairly quickly using a guided protocol of discussion. So that might be something else we could look into as a board, trying out at some point at a work session maybe. And then I'll end with a celebration that, based on our STAR testing, our internal district testing, we're looking like we're on track to make significant progress in English language arts. We had adopted some SMART goals at the beginning of the school year for K through 12 ELA or reading, and then free and reduced lunch ELA or reading. And the goal for K through 12 was to see an increase of students on grade level of 3%, and we hit over 9% of an increase in students being on track. And so that equates to 1,174 students that we moved from being below grade level to now being at grade level. That is just amazing. And then free and reduced lunch subgroup, we see that's where we have the biggest gaps in achievement. And so that was why we picked that as one of our goals for the year. And the goal was to improve by 5%, and we did over 9%. And so we moved 680 students into being on grade level for this school year. So just huge celebration and recognition of the hard work the staff are putting in to make this happen, and the students and families. So what a great way to end the school year. Thanks, everybody.
So thank you, and both Director Ott and Director Nelson for serving on that design task force yesterday, was it? Yeah, yesterday, and also providing a report to the board today. And Superintendent Gall, in his superintendent's report, shared one of the slides which goes into talking about the number of students that moved from below proficiency to a higher proficiency. So if you look at that slide, which will be attached on board docs, that gives you the specifics of that information. And we are optimistic that when the state testing results comes out later in the summer, it will reflect and align with our internal STAR testing data, and we will see significant progress made. Any other board member report? And Director Hafley or Director Thomas, I don't see them have their hands up either. So I will end with my, quickly with my board member report. I cannot believe that we are already at the end of this academic year and beginning of summer. It just seems like it was just the other day we were meeting here in August, and it was election season at that time, so we were busy getting ready for the November elections, and here we are at the end of the year. There were several notable accomplishments this year that we can all be collectively proud of, and it all starts with those board priorities up there, putting students first in all critical decisions. When we center our mission and vision, and the school district revolves around excellence in education and elevating students, the rest falls into place. I want to thank all my board colleagues. It was a slightly different board in August, and with the November elections, we got 2 new board members in place, but the focus still remained on students and improving outcomes for our students. So thank you for your hard work this year, and Superintendent Gall and his team too, and all the staff in the district for your hard work this year. Thank you. Hopefully all of you will have some time over the summer to relax, refresh, recharge, and come back in August. Couple of quick things that I want to talk about. The end of the year is also time for celebrations and goodbyes. And first, I want to start with student celebrations and give a big shout out to the graduations that took place a couple of weeks back. Graduations for all our traditional schools moved to the Robeson Arena this time, and this was the first year. And that was a big change, moving from the World Arena to a new place. And as we have seen, change is really hard. It comes always with a set of challenges. With all the planning and the commitment from our staff, graduations was a resounding success. There were minor glitches that we will certainly learn from, tweak, going on to next year and rectify it. So I do want to give a big shout out to Chris Knoll and his team because he put together all the initial planning and the arrangements, and everything went like clockwork out there. And then David Allison and his team for ensuring the security in and out the arena was there. All the school principals and the staff members who planned and assisted with bringing this first year, moving from one location to another location, it went seamlessly. Director Art talked about visiting all the schools, and this was the first year I got to, in my time on the board, be there at all graduations. I think Director Art, you were there also at all the graduation. So enjoyed watching the smiles and the excitement on our student faces as they celebrated their goals and achievements, and wish them success in their next adventures as they go forth. Staff, I do want to highlight some of our staff that are leaving us at this point in time. That's the goodbyes. So this I pulled out from the personnel recommendations. These are the staff members, teachers that are retiring, and a lot of these teachers, some of them I know them personally. They've dedicated their lifetime of services to District 11, 35 to 40 years, making a profound difference in the lives of our students. Most of these teachers, they work in anonymity. They don't want any spotlight or recognition shine on them, but just want to do their job, show up every single day, and educate our students. Hopefully this is a complete list. If it's not a complete list, the sentiment remains the same for all the teachers and the staff members that are retiring. Thank you for all your years of service. A couple of names that stand out to me on this is like Mr. Peckham. I've known known Mr. Peckham at Palmer High School for several years, and he epitomizes excellence through music. Mr. Helfer, I've known him for 15 years and always goes over and beyond Call of Duty, volunteers his time during the weekends in STEM programs. Same thing with our educational support professionals. These are the staff members that are retiring at the end of this year. We got to celebrate Mr. Dale Ogendal and Connie Pickren at a retirement celebration last week. And all these people make a difference in each one of our students' life in numerous ways. Executive professionals, those are the executive professionals, and we already said goodbye to John McCarran. And John, thank you. It's going to be not seeing you out here. You're always welcome to come and attend a board meeting, but you're going to move to South Carolina. That's what you said. So good luck in your next adventures. And also Mr. Rex Garrison, he came here and talked about the video production department and all the services that he has provided us over the year. So with that, these are some of the celebration pictures that I got from the retirement ceremony that took place just here for our education support professionals earlier this week. And I was there at one of our teacher retirements at Doherty, actually, and to see the hallways lined with students out there welcoming this teacher for that last day of school and saying thank you for her years of service. And some of these were students from 20 years back, and they've got kids of their own now, but it shows the significant amount of impact and difference each one of these employees and teachers made. So I wish all of you health and happiness as you proceed to your next stage in life. That's my board member report, and thank you. Moving on to the consent items, Director Jorgensen, you've got a tall task. You've got a long list of consent items. Can you please make the motion to adopt the consent items?
I move that the Board of Education adopts all consent items as designated in the agenda. The consent items are E2, approval of May 29th, 2024 special meeting minutes. E3, personnel recommendations for June 12th, 2024. E4, policy JICJ, student use of cell phones and personal technology devices. E5, policy series JI and JK, student conduct and discipline. E6, DAC Chair and Vice-Chair. E7, resolution 2024-43, Juneteenth holiday observance. E8, fiscal year 2024-25 property insurance renewals. E9, mill levy override plan amendment. E10, resolution 2024-48, use of portion of beginning fund balance. E11, resolution 2024-49, designations of fund balance. And last but not least, E12, resolution 2024-50, interfund borrowing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Bankus? Director Carey?
I don't see Director Carey remotely joining us at this time.
Director Hafley? Sorry.
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The consent items have been adopted as presented. For those of you who are not there at the start of the meeting, Director Hafley and Director Carey are joining us remotely, and looks like Director Carey dropped off at this time. Moving on to the action item on the agenda. The first action item that is on the agenda is appropriation of the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Director Nelson, can you please make the motion for action item F1?
I move that the Board of Education approves Resolution 2024-51, appropriation of the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and therefore adopts the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This item was presented at the May 29th special meeting, the board also had a work session conversation about this item. So there has been a lot of discussion about the budget over the last several months. Superintendent Gall, is there any additional information for our review?
Just a chance to thank the board again and the community for allowing us to propose this exceptional budget, especially given the fiscal limitations in public education. Dr. Comfort, anything to add?
Okay, board, you have any thoughts or additional comments before I call for a roll call? Okay, thank you. Director Rock.
Just one, and it's pretty brief, and then I probably will want to have a separate meeting with you just to go over a couple of other things. But there was a big ad in our English language learner, ESL, foreign language positions, 14 and a half positions. And is that because we have had a significant increase in students with that need? Do we know?
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
So we have had an increase. We also are improving and increasing our service delivery. That was also part of the ad last year. We added positions last year as well. You'll also know, it doesn't show up in the budget, but part of adding teachers is we actually collapse some ESP staff into teaching positions because that's what we needed more. So the ad isn't actually 14, I believe it's actually 8 in terms of overall FTE when you think about the net. But it is because we have seen an increase, but more importantly, or just as importantly, we want to provide an even better service to those students.
Thank you. I suspected that was it, but I wanted to confirm. Appreciate the information.
Director Nelson.
I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Comfort and Mr. Gall for your strategic, just thinking about the budget and how do we support the students, and the strategy of not making cuts at schools and having our schools have more teachers than what our enrollment would dictate, and rather making those adjustments to the budget at central administration levels and in those budgets is just, it's not what you've seen done in District 11 in the past, and so I think it's worth just recognizing it. I know we've talked about it before, but I want to say it again. So thank you for the hard work that you have done.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, I'll echo those sentiments, especially this year as we run out of the ESSER funding, the pandemic funding, federal funding. Most of the other school districts are struggling to maintain teaching positions at the school level. We prioritized teaching positions and ensuring our limited resources go to students closest to the classroom. So that is intentional, that is deliberate, that is our strategy, that is our focus, as students are our number one priority, and ensuring that they receive a high quality education is going to only happen with high quality teachers in our classroom. So with that, I am excited to see what unfolds over the next year with the extra additional supports that we have at the school level. Roll call, please, Ms. Olson.
Director Bankus? Director Carey?
Director Carey is not with us at this time.
Director Havely?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it that the board enthusiastically has approved the appropriation of the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, Spring 2024 Instructional Materials and Secondary Course Approval. Director Bankus, can you please make the motion for action item? Yeah, go ahead.
I move that the Board of Education approves the Spring 2024 Instructional Resources, course revisions, and new courses as proposed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Again, this item came before the board as a non-action item at the May 29th special meeting. We had a robust discussion at that time. Superintendent Gall, do you have any additional information?
I do not, but I'd like to acknowledge Alyssa there in representing if there are any more questions and the work that she's done with the team to provide this opportunity.
Okay. Board, do you have any follow-up questions after the non-action meeting that we had 2 weeks prior? Seeing none, Roll call, please. That's okay.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Director Carey is not present at this time.
Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The spring 2024 instructional materials and secondary courses was approved as presented to the board. Moving on to the next item, which is naming of the JAC Swigert Aerospace Academy and Galileo School of Math and Science. That's a naming change. Director Jurgensen, can you please make the motion for action item F3?
Yes, I move that the Board of Education approves renaming Jack Swigert Aerospace Academy, Jack Swigert Middle School, and Galileo School of Math and Science as Galileo Middle School.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This item again came before the board as non-action at the May 29th special meeting. Any additional information?
No, again, just the chance to thank Sherry and particularly the community members that aren't present today that really engaged with the school leadership and their teams in bringing this to action very quickly. This is out of cycle for how policy normally asks for naming, but we all collectively thought that the needs of the district of having schools to have names reflective of where they are going to start the year is more important, and so we appreciate the waiver to that policy as well.
Okay, thank you. Looking at the board, any questions or comments on this? Director Bankus.
I would like to say that having recently traveled through DIA, down by where the trains are that you go to the other concourses, there is a life-size statue of Jack Swigert, and saying that he comes out of Colorado Springs, and that we have, not comes out of Colorado Springs, but is acknowledged here. And so it's very nice, and I think it's a connection for our kids as well as for us adults. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully both these schools will also get new marquee signs now with the new name changes. Roll call, please, Ms. Olson.
Director Bankus? Aye. Director Carey? Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The renaming proposal that was proposed to the board has been adopted. Moving on to the next item, which is a contract award joint initiatives at Galileo Middle School. Director Ott, can you please make the motion for action item F4?
I move that the Board of Education approve the 3-year Memorandum of Agreement, MOA, M 2025-0001, with joint initiatives for youth and families to be located in dedicated spaces in Galileo Middle School to provide support for youth and their families.
I need a second.
Second, my apologies.
Moved and seconded. This is new information, Superintendent Gall.
Great. I'll have Sherry and Chris explain where we're at, but for the public, this is part of our middle school pathways work that we approved about a month ago. And as in all things in District 11, we move very quickly. But we're able to do that because Sherry Lynn Boyle sitting here is an existing partner in joint initiatives. What many of you don't know is that I think we're about the 17th or 18th largest district in the state. We went from 0 to 3rd on largest universal pre-K. Joint Initiatives is the county partner for the implementation of the universal pre-K program. And so Sherry Lynn and I have had the chance to get to know each other in this first year of universal pre-K. We appreciate that partnership. And it's through that partnership that we had some secondary conversations of what else can Joint Initiatives be doing to support the District 11 mission. And so Galileo has been on our mind of what can we be doing differently at Galileo to support the needs of our students and our families. And thankfully, the state agreed with us, the state review panel, that from a turnaround school, that the plan of a community schools initiative would be the best way to move forward. And so we had already been having those conversations, and then to have the state chime in, and then to have the board to approve those middle school pathways is how we're able to be here as quickly as we are. I would really like to acknowledge the legwork and the footwork that Chris has been able to provide in both the contracting, but not just that part of it, the walking of the space, the multiple visits, the pricing, the way that we could get there. But we bring to the board for consideration tonight what we think is an accelerated and an awesome opportunity to double down on an existing relationship that has moved us to third in the states when we are nowhere near that large on universal pre-K. Because again, servicing students and families is Sherry Lynn and ours shared goals. And so I appreciate the activation of agency, and I don't know who's going to do the rest of the talking here. Chris, you're up.
Thank you, Superintendent Gall, and good evening, Board of Education. Happy summer, almost, right? Before I turn it over to Ms. Callback, and she's going to explain what is a community school and why Galileo, I just want to identify how exciting it was to walk Galileo with the principal, with Sherry Callback, with joint initiatives, and the enthusiasm and the leadership and the excitement that the principal was displaying was overwhelmingly received from JI. JI, at the very end of the walk, said, this is going to be very successful because of that principal. Their leadership and their enthusiasm will make this very successful. So I'm sorry the principal couldn't make it here tonight, but I wanted to shout out to her because she's really going to do well. I'm going to go ahead and, maybe I'm not going to go ahead. Maybe. Ta-da! I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Callback to go over what is a community school and why Galileo, and then I'll wrap up with the overview and the return on investment and some specifics on the agreement.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Board, for allowing us this opportunity this evening to talk a little bit about this opportunity for Galileo Middle School students and families. You may know that CDE conducted a state review panel visit over 2 days in March at Galileo. That's required because they are at year 4 on the state clock. Some good data is making us think that they won't be there still next year. But both the school staff, central office staff, and the state review panel all agreed that community school is the best opportunity to serve Galileo students. And so we anticipate that the state board will agree as this process continues forward. A community school is a nationally recognized model, and there are 6 pillars of a community school. Those are listed on the bottom left of the slide. And you'll notice that the first 2 really are about teaching and learning. That doesn't change. A community school model still focuses on instruction as our top priority, making sure that every student in the school learns. And we know that students who are hungry, who have concerns about where they might sleep that evening, all sorts of other concerns that might be weighing on them, have a harder time learning and fully engaging in school. And so a community school model really allows us to, in a best case scenario, partner with an agency such as Joint Initiatives to bring all of those opportunities that families and students might need to better support a full engagement in school right on site at the school. So instead of potentially not making it to school one day because a child hasn't eaten or is hungry, there's a food bank on site that families can access. Schools and districts around the country have had lots of success with this sort of model. Julia Scott spent some time up in Aurora Public Schools. They have an entire zone of community schools. I believe it's 6 or 7 schools. And she got to see firsthand what they've been able to do over the past 5 or 6 years in a few of their schools, really implementing this community school model. And so, as Chris and as Superintendent Gall mentioned, it was really the best of both worlds when we discovered this opportunity to partner with Joint Initiatives and bring these 2 opportunities together. Great instructional and learning opportunities paired with serving the needs of the community, bringing families into the school, creating a safe place for families to have all needs met within the walls of the school. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Chris to talk a little bit about contract and return on investment.
And Chris, if you can mention the space, because I don't think everybody has a visual in their brain of Galileo and how this fits with nearly 0 displacement of any staff.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Callback, and thank you, Superintendent Gall. JI is absolutely the right partner to bring this to life in our community. What they currently offer has a lot of parallels to what a community school needs are. And one of the things that when we met with the principal and JI and we walked the facility, they sat down live and in person and said, these are the specific things that we really need at our school. And some of those are noted on the slide, but I will spell them out. Remember, this is something that's going to grow. It's very organic, but to start out right away in August, this 3-year term, starting in August, is going to offer on-site mental health providers and counselors, dental and health opportunities, the food bank that Ms. Callback mentioned. We're going to use the United Way model. There will be after-school enrichment activities. They're going to start with arts offering and with sports. There will be financial literacy offerings for families. Joint initiatives will offer youth pathway programs, crisis intervention, seek reliable transportation, and substance abuse training. What does this mean for space? JI will occupy approximately 9,400 square feet of classroom space in the basement or the lower level of Galileo. Currently, their current enrollment is about 300 students shy of full capacity. So we're not going to be displacing any students. We're going to be occupying, of the total 15,000 feet that we have earmarked for growth opportunity, they're going to move into about 9,400 square feet. There will be a separate entrance in the lower level. That's the east entrance that faces the parking lot adjacent to Union. I see some heads nodding, so you're visualizing. When we walk in, there'll be those first 4 classrooms. There still will be other Galileo classrooms going on in the basement. The arts class will still be there. Music will still be ongoing. But what we're going to do to give a compartmentalized feel so it is contained space, we're going to add what we call storefront. Initially, we were just going to do one of those metal pull gates, to separate. Fire code doesn't like it too well, so we're going to do storefront. So storefront basically means there's glass and aluminum, and when you walk in, you can see through the hallway, but there'll be card access swipe to get through a door to get to the other side. So when you are walking in that east entrance off of Union, they'll be able to access to get in, to be able to go up the stairs. Thank you, Melissa, I appreciate that. That'll be Galileo. They'll have to swipe to get in, and to go down the rest of the hallway, you can see about halfway through the hallway on the board, that's where that second storefront will be. It'll be specifically alarmed, so when Joint Initiatives wants to access, they'll have their own keypad, they'll be able to go in, they'll have their offerings, they'll be able to have meetings, they'll have family engagements, and then if they need to, they'll egress through the same entrance, and then if they grow, we'll be able to move the storefront down the hallway. So what JI will pay for the use of this space and the renovations is an annual cost of $2,200 every year for a total of 3 years. That's going to cover the utilities, what I call cost of operations. JI will have to cover internet and phone service, and then it'll also cover a portion of the renovations. So renovations are going to total about $55,000. What is delta on this will cover renovations. The contract does have an early termination clause, so if it's just not working out for either party with proper written notice, we can term. But as I always recommend to any party, if there's something not working, let's talk first. And that's what we're gonna do. We'll try and work through anything that we have, any issues that we might address, and then go forward. But if it's not working, we can terminate. So that's an overview of the contract, the floor space, and what this will do for outcomes and return on investment for the Galileo community. So I'll stop at this time and turn it back over to the board for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Are you going to share with us anything at this point in time?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have Sherilyn to answer questions.
Great. Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Director Bankus.
So to be clear, so this is going to be a separate school established on the lower floor of Galileo, is that correct?
It's not a school, it's a community school that's gonna offer wraparound services.
When they talked about curriculum and established curriculum or approved curriculum, I think when I see curriculum, I think of school.
Yeah, so curriculum is ours. We manage that through the state. What Joint Initiatives provides is access to the supports and services. So can you go back 2 slides to where Sherry started? And you can see, 1 slide, sorry. These are the types of things that are now available on-site for our students at Galileo. The simplest of one, and it probably won't happen by August, but a dental chair. You'd just be amazed what it means to get kids access to an on-site dentist a couple of days a week or a couple of days a month. So the Community Schools Initiative, Julia Scott is still the principal, Sherry is still the area superintendent. We own this as part of our academic pathways. We make all curricular decisions. There are no things being taught on the bottom floor outside of the board's authority to approve all resources. This is the way that we bring supports in, because many of our families at Galileo will miss school because they don't have access to said supports. And so much of this grows from, I always have to watch the privacy things of a student that I had been following in my first year who was not attending school, was administratively placed at Galileo because it was easier for her family, but then as challenges existed in her family, she wouldn't come to school, and we didn't have supports. And so our attempt is to partner with DHS, but DHS means not in class. And so how is it that you can have on-site supports in a community school initiative that then you're missing a half of a period to get the support that you need, instead of, in that case, that one young student, we lost her, and she's now in a different county through a foster care process. But the amount of supports that she needed, we were not able to provide. So it's not a school on the basement. It's a set of supports that supports our school. This is our school. This is Galileo Middle School. Sherry?
Sure. If it helps, the bottom 2 community school attributes, family and community partnerships and community support services, are the places where we see this initiative, this partnership with JI, providing the most service and support.
Thank you.
Are you done, Director Bankus? Okay, thank you. So the first 4 attributes are already there. It's part of our Galileo Middle School, and the last 2 are being added as new initiatives, and that's what makes it a community school.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll continue to strengthen the top 4 as well.
Okay, thank you. Director Jorgensen.
I might have heard you wrong. Did you mention 2,200 a year or 2,200 a month?
22,000 a year, 2,200 a month
Okay.
for
I did hear you
10-month
wrong.
period. So
Perfect.
it's, sorry if I misspoke, it is a total 22,000 a year, each of the 3 years.
Okay, I was doing the utility bill math, and I was like, that's not what I pay for my house, a third of the size. So, okay, perfect, great. And then I think the other one ties back to what I mentioned at our retreat last week, which I realized many people were not there, of how, as we continue to collaborate and bring in outside this first bullet point in the MOA, on-site mental health providers and counselors. As we continue to do this at Galileo and at other schools, having those guardrails and parameters on, policy AKB with parents, how are we training these non-D11 counselors to interact with our children, and what are the parameters with, okay, this happened, I need to let the parent know by this, those kind of things. And it's not a question, it's more of just a comment to say, let's be aware of these, collaboration, community partnerships, that we have policies that put parents in collaboration with their student in their learning environment. And so I would hate for us to have things happening in our schools that are against policy among counseling type issues with students, and make sure that we're following all of that the right way is my overarching concern with as we continue to expand partnerships among the area.
Sure. And our partners would be expected to abide by all of our board policies as well. The other piece that we haven't spoken about yet is part of the community school model is also a new role called a community coordinator. It's not the same as a community liaison. It has some different components to it. Eventually, we are hopeful that Joint Initiatives and D11 will each be able to fund a portion of that position. But in order to start the school year with this position in place, we have grant funding available for Galileo through the EASY grant that we will utilize initially to pay for that role. And part of that person's role will be working with any partners who come in to make sure that they understand D11 policies and procedures. Sherry Lynn, do you want to add to that?
I'll just say, Sherry Lynn Boyles, that JI is happy to comply with the board's guardrails and directives. So just want to provide that assurance. Also, we have our own policies about family engagement. We believe in parent involvement and parent directed pathways, or student and parent directed pathways. So just want you to know that it's also, we align in our policies with family and parent engagement. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarity. Director Nelson.
Can you put a little bit of definition between or behind success in your documentation? It says that you have a impressive 94% success rate, and what does that mean?
Sure. So we provide wraparound services based on referrals we receive from different sources, including school districts. And so, ironically, our program is called Pathways as well, and it is a multi-agency approach. So what we do is we bring in, when we have a student or child who's referred who qualifies for our services, and we base that on a variety of assessments, we bring in the school district, DHS if that's necessary, peer support, mentor, certainly the family, and we have youth-directed. I just thought it was so interesting listening to Superintendent give his report, because we use a lot of the same language around it being very youth-centered and youth-directed. And so we develop plans with these multiple agencies together, with the youth and their family really directing that plan. And we think that's a huge part of the success, is that we build in incentives. It's very much about what the youth want to see happen. And so it can be a range of approaches. Sometimes it's very heavy on school re-engagement. Sometimes it's making certain types of appointments. Maybe it's a substance abuse situation, so they need to participate in substance abuse counseling, and then they also have to do drug testing as part of that. And so these plans are different lengths, and so though the percentages can differ based on the plan length. But the plan completion is what we're basing our success rate on. And so we have a 94% plan completion rate.
So based on each individual's situation, they help develop their own personal goals with guidance, and then they meet those goals by a certain time frame, and then
Right.
we can say that's the
Yes,
success.
and so we help track, we stay in communication with them and their family, and we try, as well as the agencies who are involved. So it's not so much they get to say, we want to play volleyball every day. And there's multiple agencies involved in really sort of bringing along, here's what's going to be successful. But it's very much putting them in the driver's seat so that they feel empowered to, in their lives. And we sometimes build in incentives. They might ask for a certain type of class if they complete their plan. And so we will pay for that, for example. I think another factor is that we also offer direct support to families So if they can't meet rent, if they have transportation issues, we're able to help them with that. And so when we bring down some of that stress level in the family, we see children becoming more successful as well. I think it also really makes an impact for youth when they have these agencies who are wrapping around them. I think they feel supported, I think they feel important, I think they feel validated, and feel like they're accountable as well.
Do you have, I don't know how else to say this, but like sort of repeat students or families where there was a situation, they completed those goals, but then it's like, oh, there's still this other thing over here that could be further developed. So
I don't have a statistic on that, and so it's not high. So it's not even something that I even talk about, because it would be very low. It would be anomalous.
Yeah. So you're reaching lots of different.
What I just will add to that is that's the goal of the community school, is that if we do have, because we know that so many of our students that find challenges don't find singular challenges. This concentration of challenge in the system bears itself out in schools where those supports are not available. And so we will come up with robust data to be able to share as, one, the Community Schools Initiative, and then two, as JI as the partner, to make sure that we're fulfilling on that goal. But the whole point of the Community Schools Initiative is normally kids that are served well by community schools will get multiple touch points with the offerings available there, because those challenges just don't go away by meeting the 94% goal that Sherry Lynn's been able to do, because you're just not changing the conditions that some of our students are living in. But now you start to change the dynamic that students and families know that those sources are available for solutions. And then, I think it creates a great solution, particularly for the challenges we've seen at Galileo, probably even before, well, the State Turnaround Initiative is 4 years old now. So this predates, even during COVID.
So kind of on that point, I'm assuming the 10-month period is just because it matches the school year, but summer doesn't mean your problems just go out the window. So is there potential to extend throughout the year if there's services needed by students?
Yeah, I think there is. We will continue to provide services, so that potential exists that we would do it also at Galileo. We want to start with the 10 months, but we will continue through the summer at our other locations, because we will still have a headquarter location.
Okay.
We also still do a lot by remote, and so even at Galileo, we will be having remote appointments where that's more appropriate.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit to the shared space? What is the shared space? I'm guessing maybe it's the art room, since that was mentioned.
The shared space, there's one small room that has wood floors, and it's a little more intimate meeting space. And JI just indicated when they saw that, hey, this might be great for smaller meetings. That's the hash marked. They won't use it during the day. They don't want to interrupt anything that's going on at the school. But if it's not being used, they just want to have it for meetings.
Okay.
Nothing else.
I just noticed that painting and other things were part of the plan, so I thought, oh, the art room might be, but that's okay. We've got it figured out. Did you mention if the grant is already in place to cover the D11 FTE?
The EASY grant, yes.
Sure. Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's part of the EASY grant. One of the buckets of funding that we applied for within EASY was to support a pathway for Galileo. And now that that pathway has been identified as a community school model, we can use that funding for 2 years to pay for that community coordinator position. And we can always reapply for EASY grant as well.
Okay. And then I would be remiss to not point out that the timing of this, I assume that it's because we want to get this launched for the next school year, but for it to be new information that we're voting tonight is a little overwhelming. So even if it was a courtesy email of heads up, this is coming your way, here's some background information, that would have been appreciated, because it's a little bit like this has been in the works for a while based on how thorough all the information is, but it's the first time the board is hearing about it. So just for future reference, would appreciate that not happening. But I'm excited to meet student needs and don't want to slow it down. And I guess I'm thinking that with us shifting to board meetings potentially only being once a month, we might run into this more often. And so maybe we could just, like I said, a courtesy email to just help maintain the pace, because I don't want to delay it for the kids, but to help prep us in knowing what's coming a little bit in advance would be appreciated. So thanks.
Thank you. Director Rock.
Thank you. I'm going to second that. Some additional information up front would have been helpful. And noting on this slide that the CDE State Review Panel visit was in March. And so I think we've heard it once, maybe in a meeting as an aside, that community school was being considered. And that's it. So my question, speaking of community school, and I'm sitting here looking at our Board of Education priorities meeting after meeting, and our community engagement and building trust and transparency. And you probably know where I'm going with this, because I sent an email and asked if the DAC and the SAC had any heads up about this at all. And no, the DAC didn't. And I'm understanding from DAC personnel that the SAC doesn't really exist. So there's an invitation to our community to jump in and support the Galileo SAC, the School Accountability Committee. So I guess, what community involvement has there been, if any? I'll take the school or the JI initiative. And if there hasn't been any, what is planned to maybe step in and introduce this concept to this community?
Sure. That really started with the State Review Panel. State Review Panel requires that we have parents as part of one of the panels that are spoken with during that visit. And so we do now have a School Accountability Committee at Galileo. It's small, but hopefully will grow over time. And parents were involved at that level. And the feedback that we received both from parents, families, school staff, across a number of groups that the State Review Panel talks with in their time here, was that there was great support for a community school model. So SAC may not have been as specifically involved in this particular partnership. They will be come fall, but they were most definitely involved in that State Review Panel and in the identification of community school as a pathway that was desired at Galileo.
I'll also add that during the middle school pathways conversation, the DAC and the SACs of each school were engaged through both the school leaders, and then we made a presentation to the DAC on the middle school pathways initiative before it came to the board for action, of which the board did approve Galileo as a community schools pathway. And I'll have somebody get the date. I believe it was end of April or early May. So there has been heavy community engagement on this initiative.
On the community school initiative?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And I do remember, now that you mention it, the community school being part of the pathway vote. All right. I would encourage the continued, especially for joint initiatives, and I spoke with Ms. Boyles earlier, and she said they'll probably have an open house or something, and bravo, because when we don't really know what's going on, it's hard for us to respond to the community, certainly, and explain what's happening, and why a school is having a nonprofit move in, as wonderful as this one is. And I also am happy to support student needs with this vote. Thank you.
Director Bankus.
Yes, I would like to get back to the success rate when we talk about children from 10 to 18. So if you would come back to the podium.
Sure, then a question for you on the age bracket of your success rate.
So when we talk about setting goals, are these yearly goals? Are these goals from when they start in your program at whatever grade they start? And how was that? So you have a great success rate, and that's outstanding. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering about, and it kind of goes back to the question that Director Nelson had asked. As someone enters the program, is it a one-year program? Is it an 8-year program? Say a child comes in at 10. Is it an 8-year program, and there are things along the way for 8 years that they have to meet those metrics? And that's what you base your success rate on?
It's a great question. And so these are shorter term relationships, I would say, compared to talking about 8-year, which is certainly more of a, would be a longer relationship. I'll just point out that we're really probably looking at sort of two approaches here, that we're talking about bringing in our pathways services, and so still providing the pathways services in general to youth that are referred to us, but that we saw an opportunity to also provide these services more broadly to the Galileo population. And so we are designing programs, and will be designing programs, I should say, with the school to really tailor to Galileo students. So we have what we call three levels of services for youth. And so sometimes it's just crisis intervention that we're called in for. So that's very short term. And then we have more of a medium sort of level of engagement, which might last several months. And then we have longer term services, which tend to be more the 1 to 3 year term. So not out to 8 years. And so then we have partners that are much more engaged for these longer term relationships. And so we are based, that's an aggregate of the different terms, and I could certainly follow up and provide more details about how that breaks out. But the Galileo students would still be able to avail themselves to these services, but we see this as being a longer term relationship with Galileo students because we will be on site, or however long that is, where we might be more crisis intervention. In another, a student's life who's outside of Galileo, if a Galileo student presents, then we're probably going to look at a longer term relationship unless crisis intervention is all that's needed, because we're here on site and they're here on site and their family's connected. So 2 different approaches.
And that clears it up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the board? And looks like Director Carey has also joined us at this point in time. Superintendent Gall, this initiative that you are bringing forth in front of the board at this time for board approval was also recommended by the CDE State Review Panel visit when they visited us in March.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so that is an unofficial report. It has not been released. Those reports don't come out until the fall. They just gave us the advanced copy of the direction that they thought, and it conveniently aligned with the timing of the board. And so our initiative was, why wait another year when we can get services in place starting in August?
So the services will be in place starting in August when some of it.
It will take time,
okay.
But we are ready to start that project this summer.
Great.
To have as many in place as possible.
The building becomes available, so we actually move in. So there will be a whole move-in process, right, and then bringing partners in. So I think it'll be somewhat staggered.
Okay.
But we will start locating there.
Okay. And I'm sure this has been covered in your report, just for the community's awareness too, that all safety precautions are being taken place, so our students at Galileo Middle School do not have access or entry pathways to any of these.
As consistent with our other partners and some of our other underutilized spaces, we will remain there.
Yes.
Thank you so much. The last question I have, what percentage of students that you anticipate serving from Galileo itself, do you have any idea what that could be, how much impact it's going to be for our schools as opposed to students from outside our schools?
I think that's difficult to answer right now.
Okay.
I will say I anticipate that we will serve many more Galileo students than we do students who are not at Galileo.
Okay.
Because of location.
Okay. So based on some of the feedback, the board is certainly supportive of the Superintendent Gall, and maybe this is a conversation that an update can come to the board possibly in December or January.
We're
after the
certainly
first-
happy to invite you to the first ribbon cutting of the first service that's available. So we'll make a big splash on that.
That's awesome.
Particularly that this will be our first middle school to have its pathway in place as part of the work that the board approved earlier this year.
Okay.
And we'll even enroll your kids in universal pre-K. Sherry Lynn will bring the team along for that at the same time.
And more so, we also want to see what the progress is 4 or 5 months. The ribbon cutting is the ribbon cutting, which is great, but we want to see the progress that is being made 5 months, 6 months down the road. Roll call, please. Oh, you had a question.
Can I just? Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I just want to make a comment real quick. I mentioned earlier I had sent questions to Superintendent Gall, copied you, and basically giving a heads up that I had questions, and I appreciate the response. It was, to me, it felt very quick. I mean, I realized there was some traveling involved, and but thank you for that. I appreciate the responsiveness from all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking the questions too. And just as a point, a reminder to, since there is a lot of people from Executive Cabinet, when a question comes from a board member, when you send the response back, please make sure that you copy all the board members in, so all board members have access to that information back. Thank you. Roll call, please, Melissa.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The contract award with joint initiatives at Galileo Middle School was approved by the board. And congratulations. We look forward to further updates as we proceed.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is the North Middle School teachers to IB training. Director Nelson, can you please make the motion for action item F5?
I move that the Board of Education approves the budget transfer of $12,190 to send additional teachers to International Baccalaureate IB training.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is new information. Superintendent Gall.
Dr. Comfort, another good news story.
Good evening, Board. This is great news. As the Board's aware, Policy DBJ requires Board approval for any transfer of money beyond $20,000 between major programs. Basically, first I want to say Miss Leisure from North, our principal at North, is very apologetic for not being here. She's out of town, otherwise she would be here on North's behalf. Basically, North wants to do, they're leaning into their IB Pathway program. They need to do some Pathway PD this summer, and they need money to do that. They want to use their own IB money to do so. But because the state of Colorado considers professional development non-instructional, we have to transfer money from instruction to non-instructional accounts to do so, and that's what brings me in front of the board.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The budget transfer as presented was approved. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, Contract Award C 2024-0067, Charter School Renewal Contract with Roosevelt Charter Academy for a 5-year term. Director Bankus, can you please make the motion for action item F6?
I move that the Board of Education approves the contract award C 2024-0067, Charter School Renewal Contract with Roosevelt Charter Academy for a 5-year term.
Second.
Okay.
There's more.
Yeah,
I
complete
don't
the.
have anything.
Yep.
Oh, here it is, I gotcha. The contract performance will start, thank you. The contract performance will start July 1st, 2024, and has a 5-year term ending June 30th, 2029, subject to any earned contract extensions through the annual performance report process in accordance with policy LBD.
Second.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Again, this is this contract itself is new information. Superintendent Gall.
Certainly, Dr. Mendelsberg. We appreciate the board having done the review and recommending us go to contract terms for renewal for both Roosevelt and then in succession here Academy ACL. Scott, anything to add on the contract?
No, just that I apologize. This did take a little longer than it has in the past. The infrastructures that had been working pretty well for 2 years didn't work as well. It's on me. We're fixing it, but I apologize for the lateness of these coming in front of you. We do have the wonderful principal from Academy ACL, Teresa Brown. The principal from Roosevelt, Kate Boyce. Holy cow, I almost forgot. Kate Boyce is out of town, so she couldn't be here tonight, and she apologized.
So the board had an opportunity earlier in the year, if I remember right,
Correct.
to review the application packet itself and their performance packet, all of it going together. This is just the contract terms that's coming in front of the board
That's
at this
correct.
point.
That's correct.
Okay. Board, any questions? First one is Roosevelt Charter Academy. That's what is in front of the board. Director Bankus.
I had the pleasure of attending your film night. That was the first time that I had attended, and it's an ongoing tradition, I understand. And their drama group had and production group had pulled together their skills and produced just a very professionally acted, produced, directed, choreographed. Everybody did such a great job. And so the students who participated in this project were driven up in a Tesla to a red carpet, to the applause of the paparazzi outside to welcome them into the theater. And thank you to Roadhouse Cinema for giving us the opportunity to present these children the opportunity to be in a professional setting in order for that film to unfold. And it was well appreciated. They had, how many?
200 people.
At 200 people, so they had planned on 50 and 200 showed up. It speaks to the commitment, the creativity, and the dedication that all of them have, the students, the parents, the teachers, the staff, the leadership, to make sure that the children have a platform on which to demonstrate what it is that they're capable of. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Bankus. I'm glad that you could attend that event out there, and thank you for the invite. Just for the community, that was at Academy ACL. The motion that is in front of the board right now is for Roosevelt Charter Academy. Any questions on this contract? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hately?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The contract with Roosevelt Charter Academy has been approved for a 5-year term by the board. We wish you success, Roosevelt Charter. Director Ott, can you please make the motion for action item F7?
Yes. I move that the Board of Education approves Resolution 2024-52, thus approving Contract C 2024-0068 to renew Academy ACL as a district-authorized charter school. The contract performance will start July 1st, 2024, and has a 5-year term ending June 30th, 2029, subject to any earned contract extensions through the annual performance report process in accordance with policy LBD.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is pretty similar to the contract with Roosevelt Charter Academy, but the principal from Academy ACL is here. Thank you for joining us. Board, any questions for Academy ACL at this point in time? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hately?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The contract agreement with Academy ACL has been approved for a 5-year term. Thank you for being here. The principal from Academy ACL, I know this is your first year, and you have been valuable partner with District 11 under our portfolio of schools, strong academic achievement and growth in your school. So we wish you continued success going forward. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the proposed board meeting dates for fiscal year 2024-2025. Director Jurgensen, can you please make the motion for action item F8?
Yes, I move that the Board of Education approves the board meeting dates for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This item came before the board as non-action at the May 29th board meeting, and the board engaged in an additional discussion about this during the board retreat held on June 5th. Ms. Olson, if you would be able to pull up that board meeting date so our community can take a look at it, and I can also quickly talk about the proposed changes that we anticipate going forth into next year. Now, this follows policy BE, which states that if the board doesn't act, then the board meeting dates are set as second and the fourth Wednesdays. But if the board takes action on it, then we can change the board meeting dates accordingly. So in the board retreat, the board talked about efficiencies of operations going forth and how we can conduct the board business in effective and efficient manner, saving time for the board members and also for our staff, who often are here pretty late in the night. And one of the proposals that came forth, and we are going to try this out going into next year, was that we will have one regular board meeting on the calendar every month, and that will fall on the first Wednesday of every month. Unless the first Wednesday is a holiday, then it'll automatically move to the second Wednesday in that month. And then the second and the third Wednesdays in the month is going to be work sessions or board retreats if one can be scheduled at that time. And we are going to leave the fourth Wednesdays open and the fifth Wednesdays open for potential special meetings that may have to take place or additional work session conversation that may come in that environment. Or it could be a town hall meeting day or where we go and engage with the community. It could be other meetings that could happen, a visit to the community school or something around that. It could be centered around professional development for the board too. That is the plan going forth, and the dates are shared on the calendar accordingly. The board had a robust discussion about this, and Superintendent Gall and his team are also aware of this information going forth. That's the proposal that the board is going to adopt at this point in time. Board members, do you have any additional comments at this point in time? Director Roth.
Thank you. I'm going to note that since the majority of our public wasn't at the retreat, that I do have deep concerns about this. I'll be voting for it tonight, but I do hope that we are continually evaluating whether or not we are getting to business in a timely manner with the information that we need. But I'm going to trust us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback, and the superintendent and his team are aware of this, that things go on a certain cycle, non-action, action, and this is going to require some proactive planning on all the team members' part. Thank you. Director Nelson.
Just clarity on the second and third meetings. It's listed as a potential special meeting or work session. I think you said retreat, but that makes me wonder if we should add that in the text, that it is an option for a retreat. I was actually thinking about that previously, and you just reminded me of it.
Yeah, right now, I think the way our calendar is adopted is board retreats are optional and sometimes gets added in the calendar Like last week, we had a board retreat that was not specifically called out on the calendar. If the board wants that specific call out, we can add our board retreats in the calendar out there. But it could be special meetings or retreats or work sessions as needed and as requested by the board at that point in time.
I'm good either way if you want to add the wording retreat, but just wanted to add the clarity of what those second and third meetings currently say.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Are everyone's microphones on? Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The proposed board meeting dates for fiscal year 24-25 was adopted by the board. Resolution 2024-54 Globe Charter School closure. Director Nelson, can you please make the motion for action item F9?
I move that the Board of Education approve Resolution 2024-54, thus approving the dissolution of Globe Charter Schools Contract C 2016-0154. This would conclude Globe Charter Schools operations as a District 11 authorized charter school effective June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Superintendent Gall, any additional
Yeah, as I bring
information?
Dr. Mendelsberg to the podium again, first for the community, I want to acknowledge that the challenges with a portfolio strategy is sometimes schools aren't able to be able to provide the excellence that families ask for. And so I appreciate Scott and working with the Globe team in trying to find the multiple opportunities for them to think ways through to be able to continue to support families. I also want to thank Globe for the thoughtful way that they communicated with their families early enough in the year, and then particularly to our team that showed up for kind of a school choice night for families that hadn't figured out what they wanted to do next. The family and the student are always at the center of how school choice and portfolio works. And when a school doesn't succeed and has to close its doors, we have to make sure that we are extending all of the District 11 and really the larger, all of the El Paso County choices for those families. Every student deserves access to high quality instruction, and I want to thank all those involved in ensuring that this was as smooth and as seamless as possible. Scott?
Yes, thanks Superintendent Gall, board. If you remember, just quick on context, they came to the board late last year asking for the opportunity to run grades 7 and 8. We tried to work with them. They're wonderful folks. They're great teachers, great leadership. They just didn't have the demand signal that could sustain it. And so we did have lots of opportunities to talk to the families through email and things like that. We had a night for anybody in the community to come have. We had some of our schools there. Based on talking with the leadership at Globe, about 80 to 90% of the Globe students have are matriculating to D11 portfolio schools. So it's really a sad thing when schools have to close, but we did everything we could, and these folks did everything they could, and it just didn't work out. So
Thank you. And we have done outreach with the students at Globe to see if we can absorb them in our district.
We just went through that. We had a school-specific night. We had our own school leaders there and area superintendents, and Scott says somewhere between 80 and 90% have chosen another D11 portfolio school.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hafley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The resolution for the Globe's charter school closure was adopted by the board. There are no non-action items on the agenda today. So moving on to future agenda items and tasks request, I will start this conversation first to give an update to the community about the board retreat that did take place last week. And some of what was discussed in the board retreat has already been shared with the community earlier this evening, along with the superintendent's the bold, audacious goals for next year. He shared that in the superintendent report. And the board retreat also provided an opportunity for the board to get together and creatively look at what are the board priorities going forward. What are some of the identified priorities? And having a couple of new board members seated now with a new board in place for 6 months, have some of the priorities and focus areas shifted, or have we accomplished some of our previous priorities and we can focus on new priorities? So the was a good creative space, productive time for the board to weigh in, and several priorities were shared by individual board members. They were all captured on a whiteboard. Just as an update to the board, Ms. Ottmer is going to theme those priorities into buckets, and she will get that to the board probably end of this week or early next week. End of this week. So she will get that by the end of this week to the board. And the next steps going forward would be that we will have a board work session or a retreat, depending on what the subject matter that we need to cover. It possibly could be a work session or a retreat in sometime in August, to follow up on those list of priorities. The Director Art and Director Nelson talked about participating in that design thinking workshop. So maybe some of those protocols could be used to help prioritize those goals and see which one rises to the top out there, and attach some metrics also to each one of those goals, a timeline and a metric associated with that. And that will be a future time opportunity for the board to discuss that at the early August work session. It will also be an opportunity for the board to look at a more detailed implementation plan from Superintendent Gall for the attendance, discipline, and the cell phone policies. As he develops those plans with his team over the summer, we may get periodic updates from the superintendent, like an email in July, if those plans are developed. So we will have some time to review those plans going forth. And then we can proceed with that conversation in August. AdPro, the company that is helping with the board communications, they also will be able to capture those board priorities, and it could be a document similar to that one, but it could be revised to align with the new priorities that the board may adopt. So they may revise some of the language, and it's still in the process of being revised, and at some point in time, certain options will be presented to the board with the language and the graphics that go along with it, to replace our current board priorities chart with an updated priority list. All that will happen in August at a work session, and based on that conversation, we'll also work on the superintendent's evaluation and attach metrics centered on accountability. So that's my update to the board on that topic. So that's coming forth. Any other future agenda item requests at this point in time? Director Jurgensen.
As a secretary and having timely responses to those who email the board, I do have a pretty big family trip planned starting tomorrow for about a month, and I'll be international at some point of that. Would any of my fellow board members consider taking some of my secretary duties? She's already got nose goes on here for some of my responses as the board secretary. Just something to consider. You can talk to me afterwards, but wanted to put it into the air. for having some help so that we maintain prompt responses to our community while I'm away. Okay.
Can you
Thank-
email the date range?
I'll email you the date range, yes.
Can we sign up just for a week?
Sure. You
Tag team
big-
this.
Let's tag team it. Appreciate
We
it.
can do that too. And usually summer is a little bit slower time of
We're
the year
hoping.
where we don't get, but
That's right.
But then there was the summer of, I think, 2020, when we got
Oh,
like
that was
periodic emails because we were in the middle of the pandemic out
Yes.
there, and we were bombarded with emails. But
Thank you, fellow board
hopefully,
members.
barring any type of emergency, it'll be a slower time. But it is critical that we do respond back to the emails that we get in a responsive and timely manner. So, Director Jurgensen, if you can email the time frame when you are going to be out of town, and then maybe board members can tag team and cover your responsibilities. Thank you. Any other future agenda item requests? Okay. Director Nelson.
I sent an email to the board just requesting support or consideration of increasing the allotment for my mileage reimbursement. The policy, I think it's BID, BIE for board mileage reimbursement and compensation, speaks to if your office or position requires more expenses, there's an ability to create an account for that. We have not set aside separate accounts for officer positions, but I think the principle is there, that the recognition that sometimes there could be extra costs. And I attended a finance class, which was excellent. I learned so much, and there's still more work to come. I'm really excited about continuing to help the district be strategic in how we're investing the dollars. But all that to say, I have hit my limit, and I still have a couple of months left for mileage reimbursement. And so there is money available within the board budget. It would just be transferring funds from different accounts. And since I'm the treasurer, I can't make that call. So just wondering if the board would consider it. And I don't know if we need to take a formal vote.
The prior practice has not been to take a formal vote, but we do talk about it. And I am looking at policy BID, BIE, and it's a transfer of funds within individual board members' expense account, and or increase of individual board members' general purpose expense limit requires board approval. That's what it says. It's not just the treasurer or the board president making that call. So you heard Treasurer Nelson's request. Is the board that we do have funds? Yes, Director Bankers.
How much are we talking about?
I asked the same.
Hundreds, thousands?
No, I asked the same.
I want to know.
I asked the same question of Ms. Olson. She said like $300 or something, roughly around that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Okay, so I have that approval by thumbs up for transfer of funds from Director Jurgensen. Okay, there you go. I have 4 thumbs up. That's fine. I just want to make sure that I publicly have that. Yes. Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, so since this is up here, any other board member they have similar requests where you are close or close to exceeding your limit, and you need to make a similar request at this point in time? Okay, seeing none. Calendar review, I don't have anything to review. This is the last scheduled meeting of the school year 2023-24. I hope all of you in the audience, and I'm sure the board members will also appreciate the break of 6 or 7 weeks over the next Wednesdays that we don't have to meet. The next regular meeting, so for the board's awareness, is scheduled for the first Wednesday in August 7th. Will be the first board meeting, and that will be a regular meeting in alignment with our board meeting days that we just adopted. Seeing no further business, if there are no objections, this meeting will adjourn at 8:07 p.m.